Well, it's update time again. This is update number 9 of the High Def Nest project, and I'm glad to say the firmware and the circuit board and the software are done. So this week I'm releasing to manufacturing so we can get these things made. So on all the changes, I've added a lot of stuff since last time. So I've added numbers after each adjustable menu entry. Someone wanted that and I thought that was a good idea. There's a whole upgrade system now, so all you have to do is download the ROM from like my webpage, put it on a cartridge like a power pack or whatever, plug it in and go in the menu, hit update, and it will detect the cartridge and pull the update right off the cartridge and program it right into the memory on the High Def Nest, and then you just reboot the system and you're all updated. I've also got the register viewer for the audio. I really wanted that for some reason, so that's in here. So at the end of the video I will demo that and I'll play a couple NSFs and you can see how that works. So that'll be the last part of the video. I've added a fur filter on the audio. This is like a 256th order low pass filter. So now the audio sounds quite good. Before I didn't have the fur filter in there. I was just waiting to implement it. So I've implemented that now. So like the looped noise in what was that game? Solstice? Yeah, the loop. Yeah. So the looped noise in Solstice, that sounds awesome right now. I've added an option. It will be a solder jumper option on the board that allows you to flip the PPU and CPU connector. So in your install, if it works better one way versus the other, you'll be able to just solder this pad and it will flip what those connectors do. So the PPU becomes a CPU connector and vice versa. So you can just plug them in the best way that they fit and then put that solder jumper on there if you need to flip them around. So for the top loader install, it won't change. You won't need the solder blob. That'll be the default. So I don't know about the front loader. I don't know if you'll need to flip them or not. If you do, the pad's on there. If you don't, well, it's not a problem. And then I also have the Copy Nest, so that's in there now. So I call it Copy Nest Lite. It doesn't do everything the original Copy Nest did, but it will dump carts. You should be able to write to RAM carts to test code and all that other fun stuff. The only thing it won't be able to do would be that Microbug, which is my like single stepping 6502 emulator on your NES. I don't think anybody ever used it. And NSF playing obviously won't work either, but the Power Pack plays NSFs natively, so I don't think that's any great loss, and I don't think anybody ever made a cartridge anyway. And so that's pretty much it for all the changes. I'll zoom in here in a minute on the NES bottom. I cut the hole for the connector and it seems to fit quite well and work pretty good. I know some people were worried about that, so I'm going to go with it for now, and if it's a problem in the future I can always move the connector or make some other changes to the board to make it poke out a little further. But it looks like the connector fully seats into the HDMI cable fully seats into the connector, so I don't think I can get any better than that. There's naturally a gap between the two and it looks like that's fine. So here, I'll zoom in on that so you can see what I'm talking about. So here's the board installed. It's down on the little plastic bosses here, and the connector's plugged in and it seems to work quite well. I got it, it's running, and that's pretty much it. This 10-pin connector will not be present, this programming connector. The bedded nails tester that I'm doing will have pins to hit the holes where this connector used to live. This was just for development. And this connector and this chip will not be present unless you want the Copy Nest option. That's what these two chips do. And then these are the two connectors. This one right now is the CPU and this is the PPU, but using that jumper I was talking about, which isn't on this version of the board obviously, you'll be able to swap these two connectors. So right now, see, the cables are crossing each other. So I have it set up in such a way that if you flip these two and you restart that jumper on, it'll work just fine that way too. So these are fully swappable now. That was one of the original project goals and I had to kill it, and so now I've added it back in. And then as you can see over here, I have socketed to my interposers, and I've got these ZIF sockets. This makes life a lot easier to test the CPU and PPU. This is an eRev CPU and an eRev PPU, and these are working fine. So I was getting all the revs to work on this because all the revs are somewhat different. Here, I'll show that. Yeah, here's some of my collection. Actually, these aren't all mine. Jason's loaning me from GameTech US is loaning me some of these chips, which has been really nice of him. So I've got, you know, like the PAL 07A here, and then I have an extremely early RP2C02A Rev PPU here, and a blank Rev CPU that came with it. And then we got HREV, I got GREV, then there's a DREV PPU, a BREV PPU, and 2 more blank CPUs. And then I got a bad 2A07 here. This one's bad, and it sure is. I tried it and it didn't work. And then there's another GREV, and then a UMC chipset, which is kind of an interesting chipset here. It's marked UA6547 and 6548. And someone on the NESDEV forum was telling me about these chips. I can't remember what he was saying about them now, but I'll pop these chips in here and see if they work. Actually, I'll do that right now. So just to show how easy this is, turn the power supply off, pop out the PPU, the eRev parts here, and then I believe this is the PPU. Is it marked? Is it marked? So just put that one in the socket there. If it doesn't work, it won't hurt anything. It just won't work, and I will flip the parts around. But I suspect it'll work, and the video will be all screwy. That's what I expect. So pan up to the monitor. And this monitor takes a real... Oh, hey, look at that. It works perfect. Oh, that's awesome. Let's see here. Play Mario 3 really fast, since that's a fairly typical game. Looks fine to me. That's very interesting. Those chips didn't work before. Oh, they worked, but the video is all torn up, so that's pretty awesome, actually. Wow, that is awesome. So I guess if you wanted to use the UA chips, they seem to work just fine. Okay, enough of that. So everything else seems to be operating properly. However, one thing I noticed on these blank Rev CPUs, the RP2A03 blank, they seem to have a DPCM problem. The game works fine, but there's no digitized audio channel, so there's like in Mario 3 the drums wouldn't be there. So I'm still trying to work on that. I'll probably be able to work that one through. I think I know what's wrong with that. But all these other ones work fine, and PAL works great too, so like if I want to try out a PAL Rev here, so let's try out a PAL chip here. So this is our PPU, CPU, the UA parts, which seem to work awesomely. So the A07 is our CPU. Yeah, this makes life so much easier. There's a slight issue on PAL, but I believe this problem is in the PPU, so I don't know if I should fix it or not. And yes, after a very long warm-up period for this garbage monitor. There we go. So we're in PAL mode now, so I'll just play Mario 3 just for the fun of it. And you'll instantly be able to tell because the pitch of the audio is going to be all wrong, for one. And the game runs a little bit slower. Yeah, that just sounds hilarious. Ugh. Mario's acting drunk. And even the music sounds drunk. Yeah, Mario controls all like loose now and like he's drunk. Whoops. Yeah, that's really difficult. So anyway, that's that. For prove that this is indeed the PAL chipset, I will play, whoops, not that, I will play Elite, because that is a PAL only game, because it does all that nice wireframe rendering, which needs a lot of blank time. So yeah, that works fine. So the issue I have with the sprites, I'm pretty sure it's not a problem with my device. I checked the code out. I needed to verify on a monitor. I haven't done that yet. It's the only thing I haven't done. Yeah, on the freeway ROM here, the cars, as they scroll in from the right side of the screen, you can see it right here. How the first couple columns of pixels are wrong. And what the reason for this is because the X pins on the PPU are outputting the pixels here, but I'm pretty sure the actual rendering of these pixels is blanked out for the sprites, because the backgrounds are fine. So what's happening here is it's using the background palette for the sprite, so that's why it looks funny here. That's why the purple ones and the red ones and the green cars have like a different bad pixels there. So I don't know, should I fix that or leave it as is? The way I could fix it is I can blank the rightmost, I think it's 2 columns. Yeah, I think it's 2 columns. I can blank these rightmost 2 columns, so I don't know if I should do that or if I should just leave it as is. I don't think very many people are actually going to use PAL mode, but if they do, I mean, that's one thing that they'll see. Other than that, the games play absolutely fine as far as I can tell. So that's a little overview of the hardware and how I've been testing it up to this point, and all the little hardware features it'll have. So far I got the CopyNest working pretty good. I'm not going to actually write a client for it yet. I wrote a little quickie client to make sure everything works, so I actually dumped a ROM and ran it on an emulator. It worked fine, so I could upload the plugin, download the data, and do all that fun stuff. So that all works quite well. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to probably leave it up to someone else if they really want to write a really good PC client, because the one I can write is probably not going to be that great, and I really don't have a lot of time to do it. So hopefully someone will step up and want to write that, or play around with it. I'll release the little demo program that I have that shows how to interface, and I wrote up a nice document on how to interface to it, so I'll release that in a little while. So I got the entire protocol of exactly how it works and how you send data and receive data, so I think that'll be quite good. And yes, to dispel any myths, I am working with the Analog NT guys, and here's proof. Here's one of the little ribbon cable doodads with the controllers. And no, it will not affect shipment of any high-def Nest boards. That is not going to change at all. I'm still going to sell them. It's not going to slow down production. In fact, it'll probably speed up production. And yes, the version that they have for review is a live version with HDMI in it, and I've been communicating with Chris back and forth, and we've been debugging it and all that. So it's been a pretty nice little process, and I'm glad to see it get finished finally. And so I'll be sending it out the door. I actually send it out the door tonight to get manufactured. So hopefully in another week or two I'll know some more, and I'll get to work on making my bed of nails tester. And I can't really think of anything else to talk about, other than I did get a Sharp Twin Famicom. That's the FDS Plus Famicom built together by Sharp, obviously. And I may do a video on that later. I took it apart. It's kind of weird inside. The way it gets 5 volts is extremely strange. And maybe I'll go through a little of that. But it looks like this adapter will work great on that. And it'll work fine on the top loader. Yes, it is going to work with the top loader. In fact, I designed an extra hole in the board so that plastic boss that sticks up near the back middle of the case will go through it. So you can put it on there, and then so it'll take care of that. And it should stick out the back and work fine. You'll probably need a nut and bolt to hold it in. I wouldn't trust hot melt. I hate hot melt. I don't trust it, because, you know, especially something that moves, like something with a board with a connector on it. So I suggest like a nut and bolt. I'll obviously supply that, and it looks like for now nothing's changed. GameTech.us will be doing all the installs for now, and I really don't know a whole lot more other than that. And like I said, this deal with the Analog NT guys does not change anything that's happening about this project, other than, you know, they're using it now too. So if anyone else wants to use it in a product, let me know. Well, I mean, granted, the scope of this product is fairly limited to NES and Famicom, so I don't know what I'm going to do about the Famicom if you actually want to install this inside an original Famicom. About the only way that would be possible is if you wanted to add a lot of wires, or more likely it'd be probably easier just to replace the main circuit board with a different board that has the high-def NES stuff built in already, so you just swap the board out and move the PPU and CPU over, and the cart connector and the button and the that 15-pin connector on the front. So I don't know if the Famicom's really very viable at this point. I would suggest if you want a Famicom modified, you use the top-loading new style Famicom, and I think that would probably work the best. That's more like a top loader, NES top loader. So this device should work just fine in there. And then one other little minor thing I've done is this device now is also compatible somewhat with the RGB NES, and it also now will output the composite video too. So if you unplug the HDMI cable, it will revert to like a quote-unquote unmodified state, so the PPU will output the proper video, so you can get your proper composite video out of the system now. So what I've done, I have a second jumper pad you can solder on the board, and what that'll do is if you unplug the HDMI, the PPU will get lied to, quote-unquote, again, but unlike mine, it's set up now to work with the RGB NES board, so it will speak the right lies that it's looking for, and hopefully it'll work. So I'm not 100% sure how well that's going to work. I haven't tested it yet, but it will require some mods to the RGB NES board to make this work. And I have yet to do this, but I'm just hoping it's going to work. I'm pretty sure it will, but you never know on these things until you try it. So I will try that, and eventually, I don't know if I'll get to it this week, but I'll probably post a video on this since it's kind of interesting. So it'd be really funny to have a modified system so you can have HDMI, composite, S-video, and RGB all coming out of the thing at the same time. That'd be hilarious. And if you want my custom audio, you know, with all the sound chips and such, you can maybe make a little D to A converter board that would hook right up to this. And speaking of that, those audio pads, someone was complaining that I didn't have M-Clock on there, and the reason I don't is I'm not generating M-Clock. I don't have the right frequency of an oscillator, and with the PLLs on the FPGA, I cannot generate that M-Clock signal, so that's why it's not there. So if you need that M-Clock, you can recover it off the sample clock. You'll just have to PLL it up by 4 or 8, depending on what your chip needs. So I was thinking maybe of designing a few little boards like a SP diff board and just an analog out board. I don't know if anybody would be interested in these things, but I could probably design these and throw them up on OSH Park, so if anybody wants to build them, they can. I'm not going to build them probably, but if someone wants to build one, the PCB file and whatever will be right there, so you can just make it and build it if you want to give it a shot. So that's what I've been thinking about doing. So finally, at the end of the video, like I said, I will hook this device up to my capture card, and I will capture some NSFs playing with the audio visualizer so you can see exactly what's going on. But right before that here, I'll play an NSF and point out what all the stuff on the visualizer is if it isn't, because some of it may not exactly be very obvious, so I will point it out real quick. So in the menu, the audio viewer is under audio options, and then it's viewer. And here's a typical NSF playing, so here's what all the things are. Over here we have the square wave, channel 1 and 2. This is your stock NES channels, the first 5 things here. This is a square wave duty cycle, and you can see as it's playing, it's moving. This is a triangle wave, and this is the noise, and this changes to like a pulse pattern if you're doing the periodic noise. This is the address of a sample. This is the length of the sample, and this indicates if the sample is looped. If it's a looped arrow, then it's a loop sample. If it's just a single arrow, it just plays once. And then this obviously is low pitch all the way up to high pitch, and the size of this block here indicates how loud it's playing. And then a sample thing would appear if there's one here. And then the FDS channel, this is your main channel, and this is your modulator. And then MMC5 is 2 more squares, and then the VRC6 is 2 squares, and that sawtooth, and then the Sunsoft 5B is 3 more squares. And I didn't have enough code space or screen space to unfortunately do the Namco 106 or the VRC7. You know, you'll hear them, but they won't show up on this player, unfortunately, because I ran out of all kinds of space. and that's where we're sitting today. So thanks a lot for watching all the way through, and until next time.